It's no secret that the sales of SUVs have skyrocketed over recent years. Because of this, manufacturers can't afford to make a dud model or half-ass their lineup. The CX-5 sits right in the middle of Mazda's SUV family tree, and this, the touring model, sits smack bang in the middle of the CX-5 lineup, which means that it's right in the crosshairs of the potential customers looking at buying an SUV. So in today's video, we're going to be having a look at the 2018 Mazda CX-5 Touring to see whether Mazda have got it right and whether it's an SUV that you should spend your money on. Before we get started, I just need to quickly interrupt this video and say a big thank you to the team at Blue Mountains Mazda for lending me this car for the weekend. If you're in the Sydney or Greater Sydney area looking for a new or used Mazda, do yourself a favour and go and talk to the team at Blue Mountains Mazda. They're an absolute pleasure to deal with. Alright, sorry, go back to the video. The design of the CX-5 is immediately familiar, as it follows the 2018 Mazda design language. When you consider that the engineers at Mazda had to basically turn what is a house brick on wheels into something that looks nice, it's quite a big task. If we have a look at the front, you can see that Mazda have done a great job at creating an angular, angry looking shape, yet making it look classy. We have angular LED front headlights, we have a gloss black grille, and lashings of chrome just to classen things up a touch. Moving around to the side, the CX-5 has a significant profile, and here Mazda have used beautiful body lines to break up the massive vehicle. Even in the touring spec with the 17-inch alloys, it looks classy, it looks flowing. Mazda have done a very, very good job on this. Moving around to the rear, once again, the use of LED taillights really does classen things up. Mazda have used body lines to break up the sheer mass of metal that this car has, and even using dual exhaust helps break the car up and also makes it look more interesting. Like the exterior, the interior is also immediately familiar, with Mazda following their current design language. It's very clean, concise, and uncluttered, and it is a pleasant place to be. We have the climate control, which is dual zone, and there are also vents in the rear. Then we have the 6-speed automatic gearbox, the same that you'd find in other Mazda's current lineup. You have large vanity mirrors with illumination, and there are storage options galore in the CX-5. You can easily fit a water bottle in the door pocket. You can fit 2 more water bottles in the cup holders in the centre of the car. Behind the cup holders you have this large cubby which has a pull-out tray and then plenty of space underneath, even for a message from a starting YouTuber. Then you have 2 USB ports, an auxiliary in port, a 12-volt charger and the SD card for the sat-nav. In the rear of the car we have mag pockets on each seat. Then in the centre of the seat you have this pull-out area which has 2 more cup holders and also 2 more USB ports. Looking at the rear of the car, with the rear seats up, you get 442 litres of cargo space. If you put those rear seats flat, you then get 1,342 litres of space. Some SUVs are quite guilty that they look large on the outside but aren't really that practical on the inside. Here though, the CX-5 is absolutely amazing with how much room it affords you. Dropping the seats is simple. You just pull on the tab. Here in the rear section they fold flat for you, or you can pull a tab on the top of the rear seats. That's all well and good, but what's the CX-5 Touring like to drive? As I said, because we're in the Touring model, we have the 2.5 litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine, making 140 kilowatts and 242 newton meters of torque. We have a 6-speed automatic gearbox, and then we have Mazda's all-wheel drive system, which really means it's front-wheel drive and it can send 50% of the torque to the rear wheels if it deems it necessary. The main word I'd use to describe this car is roomy. I feel like I have tons of space around me, there's heaps of headroom. Even if you're sitting in the rear seats, there's tons of leg room, you're not going to be left wanting for space. As I said before, a lot of SUVs seem to lie to you in that they look really large on the outside, but they really don't offer you too much room on the inside. As large as the CX-5 is, and I know this is a really bad cliche, but it feels like it shrinks around you. So you've got tons of luggage space, lots of space for the people in the car, but you don't feel like you're driving a tank or a boat. it doesn't really feel any larger than any other normal car. Over the course of the weekend, we've covered a lot of highway kilometres, we've done a lot of driving in the city as well, and for me, one of the sore points I have with this car is the steering feel. So on the highway, it doesn't seem to be much of a problem at all. It's more so once you get into the city areas, it seems to really lighten up on you. So when you're at speed, it's nice and heavy, and even sort of moderate speeds, it's nice and heavy, but when you get into the tighter corners or car parks, that sort of thing, it really does lighten up on you. Now, that might be perfectly fine for some people. For me, it just seems a bit odd that you feel the car weight up and unweight at different times. One thing I will say I love about this car is the suspension. So it does a very good job at ironing out imperfections in the road. It does a great job of just wafting along the highway. It is very comfortable when it comes to things like annoying speed bumps or bumps in the road. It handles them all very nicely. Another element that helps with the comfort level of this car is the lack of road noise that makes its way through to the cabin. So the Touring rolls on 17-inch wheels, which obviously helps. But when you, especially on a highway, there's really no road noise that makes it through. Even if it's a windy day, it's nice and calm. It's a pleasant place to be. In the Touring model, you also get the heads-up display, which the GT and the Akira also get. Much like the Mazda 6, this one is displayed on the windscreen, rather than in the Mazda 3, which has it on the Perspex pop-up. Now, as with the Mazda 6, the issue there being that if you're wearing polarized sunglasses, it's very dull. Even if you crank the brightness right up, it's quite dull. However, I prefer this method over the little screen that pops up. Now, in the Touring model, it will display your speed, it has the traffic sign recognition system, and it also displays your blind spot monitoring alerts. If you have the GT and the Akira, you get a little bit more information, because the Akira gets your lane departure warning and your lane keep assist. That will also display. Now, I've given my thoughts on the traffic sign recognition system in my Mazda 3 review. However, basically I'm not a massive fan of it, just because of the way we use traffic signs here. You do get a lot of multiple speed signs depending on what time of day it is, and the system has trouble keeping up with what it should be displaying. And as I just mentioned, there is blind spot monitoring in the Touring. Now, there's actually 3 places that you're alerted to your blind spots. So you have a little amber light that turns on in your mirror. You have the heads-up display, which shows that there's someone there. And also in your gauge cluster on the image of the car, it'll display there as well. Not that you really have to rely on the blind spot monitoring, because the visibility in this car is absolutely sensational. There's glass everywhere, so you can see all angles of the car. It feels nice and airy, and it's nice and light in here. The only place that you obviously can't see that well here is behind you. Now, Mazda has you covered because this does have the reversing camera in your MZD Connect system. Another important aspect to talk about is fuel economy. So, as I said, we've had this for the weekend, and on Saturday we did mainly highway driving, where I was able to average 5.1 litres per 100k, which I actually think is really impressive. The rest of the weekend was spent city driving and normal sort of driving around home, and we saw the figure blow out to 7.5. I say blow out, but really that's not too bad, is it? Especially when you consider this car weighs just over 1,600 kilos. Now, personally, I found on the highway, it was absolutely no drama. It's effortless. Cruising along at, say, 80 to 110 kilometers an hour, the CX-5 does a perfect job. However, around home, I found that the lack of torque does show. So, this gearbox itself, I don't have any issues with. If you watch my Mazda 6 review, you'll see that I thought it was actually the perfect gearbox for that application, and I feel the same here. However, driving around the city, you do feel that it's hunting, and you can hear that it's hunting, and really, it's more so the lack of torque that causes that. So the car's trying to do its best to put the car in the power band, but it does have a tough time. As I said just previously, this has 252 Newton meters of torque. However, if you tick the box for the diesel engine, you'll get 450 Newton meters. So almost double the torque. And personally, that's what I would probably do, because you just feel that It's wanting that little bit extra torque down low to help you get off the line. Another thing I was picking on over the weekend was the little blanking plates you see around the place that you know means the GT gets a feature that you're missing out on. So if you bought the GT over the Touring, you would get 19-inch wheels, a 10-speaker Bose stereo, power adjusting seats, leather heated front and rear seats, and also I should mention genuine leather rather than Mazda's synthetic leather. You also get a remote operated tailgate and a sunroof. So personally I think they're nice things to have, especially when the price difference isn't all that much. If you went to the Akira, which is the top of the line, you would then get a 360-degree camera, lane departure warning, lane keep assist, and a couple of other safety options, which, if that's the way you're inclined, you might think it's worth it. Personally though, I don't really see the value. I do see the value in getting the GT over the Touring, but once again, that depends what you're looking for. It's not to say that I think the Touring is poorly spec'd. It's not, it's actually very well spec'd. I just think that the price difference between the Touring and the GT, Mazda give you a lot of value for that money. And for me, that's where I would be looking. I also would be looking for a diesel engine. Now, I'd have to drive one to back up these claims, but I keep going back to the torque. It just feels that this car needs that extra torque that's made available by the diesel. Really, that's the only fault that I have, that around town you feel it's struggling just a little bit. Once you're on the highway, perfectly fine. You don't feel that it's under any duress, it's effortless, beautiful. It's just that moving around town, getting away from lights, getting out of corners, you do feel it labour a little bit. So in conclusion, the CX-5 is a brilliant car. When you think back to not that long ago, the SUVs were just absolutely depressing, boring, utilitarian vehicles, really designed just to lug people around, no more, no less. They've come a long way in such a short space of time, and Mazda has really nailed the CX-5. It'd be the perfect family car no matter what stage of the family life cycle you're in. So if you've got new kids, there's plenty of room for strollers and the like in the back. You can easily wipe down the seats for any mess. Once your children get a bit larger, you can fit 3 small children in the back perfectly fine. There's room for all their gear. You've got the hard tray in the back just to protect the carpet. I mean, really, Mazda has thought about anyone and everyone when it comes to this car. As I've said before, I would look to have the diesel over the petrol. However, in 2019, Mazda will be bringing out a 2.5 litre turbo motor, so that might actually be a perfect fit to get rid of all the things that I've been complaining about. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. I always enjoy seeing that you like my content. Subscribe if you aren't already. And once again, thank you so much to Blue Mountains Mazda for lending me the car for the weekend. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day.